Welcome to the Timely Topics Show, where we're bringing you all the buzz and banter of today's business conversations. Straight from our studios in downtown Hartford, with your hosts, Rory McGloin and Jennifer Matthew. Welcome to the second episode of Timely Topics. I'm your host, Rory McGloin, and I'm excited to be joined by my co-host and our Chief Inspiration Officer, Jen Matthew.
Aloha.
Our theme for this episode is risk, and later on in the show, we'll be diving deeper into the topic and discussing how risk influences our decision-making and what we can do about it. As always, we'll be rounding out the episode with our good idea or bad idea segment featuring our producer, Alex, with the best hair and his mystery topic. Let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Timely Topics. Great to be back. As hopefully you know, our first episode was released on Leap Day a few weeks ago. Hopefully you had a chance to check it out. Jen, did you have a chance to check it out?
Obviously.
Okay, good. What'd you think?
Pretty good.
What did you think about the fact that we had a Leap Day release? Because what that really means now is I think for us to celebrate the first anniversary of the show coming out, we have to wait 4 years. I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on us to produce some 40 episodes now.
Yep, sure does. However, did you know that the last time that we had a leap year was in 2020, which was just weeks before we shut down for COVID?
I did know that because I've seen some posts with people kind of going back to that, and it did make me do a little bit of reflection.
Yeah, so it made me reflect a lot too. And one of the things that I was thinking is, what are the things that we do differently now that we didn't do back then?
I mean, remote work's nice, right? That's been a good change of pace. I think it's interesting because for me, when I saw the post that went up about people saying it was 4 years ago, I saw the folks of people that had entered my network that actually weren't there 4 years ago. So that was first and foremost kind of ironic. And I was saying, well, what do I do differently? And I listened to a lot of podcasts. And maybe that's the manifestation of why we decided to go in this direction in any case. And I started listening to podcasts. I think it was this point or opportunity to develop some parasocial relationships with people because you couldn't hang out. And so all of a sudden you found yourself just gleaning for some friends. And so for me, podcasts became an important part of a way to get through those days.
Yeah, me too. I definitely started listening to podcasts far more than I did before. But so speaking of podcasts, I think you can tell a lot about a person based on the speed in which they play back their podcasts.
So we were talking about this and we were kind of reviewing the first episode, and one of the comments that came up was, what speed are we going to listen to this on? And I was listening to it in the car just to kind of get a sense of where we're at. And I was thinking to myself, I don't know if my voice is going to work with 1.5 times. Maybe that's why I've chosen to speak quicker in life right now, is because I've been listening to too many podcasts at 2 times, and now it's just crept into my day-to-day activities. What about you? Are you somebody who typically listens to podcasts at a faster rate?
Yeah, I definitely listen to it at least 1.25, if not 1.5. It depends who's speaking and how quickly they're speaking. But there's some podcasts that I savor, and I want to be at that one just so I can enjoy it. Or if I know I have a certain amount of distance to drive and I know how many minutes are on that podcast, I kind of try to time it that way.
That's really interesting. So you don't have the philosophy of going, let me try and get through this so I can get more. Jen, there's a theme emerging here, folks, that Jen likes to savor things that she really enjoys. So we'll have to maybe go down that path in a future episode. We love podcasts. We love books. We like to make recommendations that nobody's asked for. Do you prefer a podcast or an audiobook over reading? And especially post-pandemic, where we've really brought multimedia into our lives in so many different facets in so many different ways. What's your preference?
Yeah, so when it comes to actually a book, I need to read it. I don't know if it's just that I recognize the page number, I recognize where it is in the storyline, that I can go back and take that insight or reread it again, whatever it might be. I can't listen to books, but obviously I listen a lot to podcasts. So read book, listen to podcasts. What about you?
I love listening to books, to podcasts, to people. There's something about the voice for me that really makes the difference. And I have to say, I've been guilty of this, where somebody's made a recommendation for a book, and so I download it on Audible and I go to listen to it, and I get maybe minutes in. I just can't stand the author's voice, and I won't pursue it any further. I wish that there was an option in Audible. This is a great idea. Maybe you guys can have this one for free, where you could have different authors.
Yep, I knew where you're headed on that one.
Yeah, some different authors that were reading it in different styles. By the way, and I don't know if anybody's read it yet, the Arnold Schwarzenegger book came out, and somebody was telling me that he does the narration for the book. So I think I might check it out just so that I can listen to Arnold read the book. That sounds fun. So if anybody's checked that out, let us know if it's worth watching or reading or listening to.
Yeah, so here we are in March. You're coming in with green. So this is your month, St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day is here. It's always exciting. I think it's fun because I get to celebrate it all the time. It's something that's just part of my repertoire and what we do. I love seeing other people get excited about it. So, they'll ask questions, they'll have an interest in it. And that's always fun for me to get to share those stories.
So tell me, what's the deal with St. Patrick's Day here in the U.S.?
Yeah, it's really become probably more of a big deal in the United States than anywhere else. And I was doing a lot of people have asked me this, and I didn't really always have a great answer. So I did some research, and one of the things that I found to be really interesting was George Washington played a pretty big role. So if you go back to the end of the Revolutionary War, he wanted to boost morale for his troops. There was a relatively large contingency of Irish soldiers in General Washington's army, and he thought that he would give them St. Patrick's Day off as a way to kind of showcase to his troops that he saw them and he appreciated the work. And he held a dinner. And that dinner went on to become this thing that's now celebrated, for years. And there's even, it exists all over the country, these friendly sons and daughters dinners that are in homage to General Washington's celebration of the Irish and their contributions to the Revolutionary War. And so I think that is a great way to understand maybe how it got started here in the American population.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't know that story. So what do you do to celebrate?
I mean, for us, one of our favorite days of the year as a family is the Hartford St. Patrick's Day Parade, one of the oldest parades, one of the biggest parades in the country. It's really one of our favorite days because for me, it's tradition, it's culture, it's heritage, it's the old generations and the next generations coming together, walking down the street, right down Capitol Avenue, seeing everybody out. I mean, if we get a sunny day here in Hartford for the parade, it's just one of the best days. And I can remember as a child, my father was with the local iron workers, and they used to have a beam that would go down Capitol Ave, and I got to sit on top of the beam, and we'd throw candy out to kids, and it was a really good memory. And so now today it'll be fun. We take the whole family out, and my daughter gets to join it. She gets to have her own tradition, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
So speaking of March always makes me think of spring break. And so I think for anybody that's in higher education, you think about spring break and all the destinations that you used to go to or are still going to. Jen, I know you've got a trip planned. What are you doing for spring break this year?
Yeah, so a group of us in the center are going down to South by Southwest in Austin. It's my first time going. I'm so excited. The team has gone in previous years, but I can't wait for the experience, to meet really great entrepreneurs, to have that energy and excitement. But I also honestly have been checking the weather, and I just can't wait to have 75, 80-degree days and have sunshine.
Well, here's the thing. We're all going to be really jealous of you. So if you could send us a postcard back and let us know having fun. And speaking of postcards, it's time for correspondence, Alex. So we'll kick it over to you and let us know, did we get any correspondence?
Yeah, we actually got a few. Emily L. said, I noticed that both of you love to recommend books, podcasts, and other content. So I'm curious, what are some of your favorite books and podcasts that you've read or listened to in the last year or so?
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Emily, for the contribution. For me, I've been reading this new book from Daniel Pink called The Whole New Mind, Why Right-Brainers Will Rule the Future. And I may be biased as a left-handed person, but he makes a really compelling argument that a lot of automation is going to change the way that the workforce goes forward. And so ultimately, it's going to be creativity that separates folks in the future. I thought it was a really interesting read.
Oh, love that. And thank you, Emily. I could spend an entire podcast episode going through my book recommendations, but I'm going to go with our CCI Book Club book, which was by Will Guidara, Unreasonable Hospitality. There are so many great nuggets and words of wisdom, regardless if you're in the restaurant industry, hospitality, or anywhere else in this world. There's something in there for you.
Yeah, we got another one from Rachel. She said, awesome first episode. You mentioned CCEI several times throughout. Obviously, I know what CCEI is, but could you tell our listeners?
Yeah, Rachel, thank you for calling us out on that. So CCEI stands for the Connecticut Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, which is a center at the University of Connecticut. We support entrepreneurs, innovators, and those that are looking to bring something new into the world. We have amazing programs and things, and this is what the Collaboratory is a part of here in downtown Hartford.
So we received a ton of engagement on our first episode. I want to thank everyone for the great comments on social media. Just want to give a quick few shout outs to Jessica, Pete, Richard, Ryan, and Kate for your excitement on the launch.
Also, I do want to share a text that I received this morning from Haley Seeger, which is one of CCI's alumni, a really great friend of ours. And she said, congratulations on the new podcast, Rory and Jen. The two of you taught me how to tap into this new uncharted territory and blend the confidence that was already there on a personal level with my newfound confidence as an entrepreneur. Having people that believe in who you are does wonders for crafting your personal brand and how you show up in a room and on LinkedIn. So thank you for all you've done to support me and the other entrepreneurs at CCEI.
That makes my day, Haley, and congratulations to you and all of your success with One With. Thank you for the correspondence, and we hope to keep it coming. By the way, if you want to get in touch, we would love to hear from you. Correspondence is always open. You can reach us at Collaboratory@uconn.edu. You can also find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Facebook. Send us a message. Hit us up with a DM. We'd love to hear from you and hopefully feature your comments on a future episode.
Guess what just happened?
No way, you're kidding me.
Hey, did you hear about...
Are you sure about that? I can't believe they... Really?
It's time for Timely Topics.
Picture this. You've got a brilliant idea, a sprinkle of passion, and a dash of madness. What could possibly go wrong? Well, as any seasoned entrepreneur will tell you, the answer is everything. But fear not, folks, for in the chaos of uncertainty lies the heart-pounding excitement of potential success. That is, of course, if you're willing to take the risk. Our timely topic for this episode is all about risk, specifically how we navigate our tolerance for risk when it comes to business and professional decision-making. Risk can mean different things to different people, and of course, there's varying levels of risk. So we'll dive into the concept of risk, our relationship with risk-taking, and examine some strategies that might help us get more comfortable with risk and its place in our lives. Are you ready to risk it all? Let's find out. So we're going to dive into this topic of risk right now. And Jen, for me, I think the first place we need to start is to try and at least define it.
Yeah, and I think risk really is our exposure to danger. So whether that's real danger or not. But I really think the big thing with risk is this fear of uncertainty.
And I think that there's a part of it that is genuinely physical, right? That our harm can come to our body, that we are afraid and have risk to take. But then the big piece of it that most of us probably spend a lot of our days thinking about is the psychological risk, right? What are the consequences of our actions?
Yeah, and I also think the other really interesting piece is risk is not just in the doing something that goes wrong, but there's risk in not doing anything at all.
100%. And so as we were preparing for the episode, Jen loves quotes. She's our chief inspirational officer, of course. And she's texting me all these quotes to get ready for the episode. Jen, you want to share some of those quotes that you found, some of your favorites?
Yeah. So the famous one we always hear is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, how to throw a good sports quote into there. Also, the biggest risk a person can do is not doing nothing at all.
Yeah, and so I couldn't help myself, but as Jen's sending me those quotes back, I said, I know one from George Bernard Shaw, and it's the month of March, so I got to get an Irish poet in here, a playwright. George Bernard Shaw says, some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream of things that never were and say, why not? Really inspiring.
Love that.
So for me, as we were preparing, I was thinking a little bit about my relationship with risk. And I would say up until recently, I wasn't aware of it. Like I really wasn't sure what risk meant to me. And I wasn't actually even aware of what type of risk taker I was. And Jen and I went through this process where we became certified practitioners of what's known as the entrepreneurial mindset profile. Really great experience, and shout out to everybody on the EMP team. Here's what happens is you get these traits and characteristics sent back to you. And when I got my report, one of the things that stood out the most was I was really low on risk taking. And while I probably might have been able to figure that out, getting to see it and a comparison score to you, Jen, a comparison score to all other entrepreneurs out there, it was really telling. And it started to help me make sense of why certain decisions I'm averse to. When we went through that experience, what did you learn from your score and your risk? Did it corroborate what you already knew about yourself? Was it helpful to see a comparative score of somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, I was middle of the line with risk acceptance, but I think what was more helpful in a scenario like that was learning about my risk as it compares to someone that I work so closely on the same team with. So it's myself in reflection of somebody that we work on many programs together, and to see your willingness and your ability to accept risk and what that means to you has changed, I think, a lot in our dynamic.
Yeah, so one of the things that we would advocate for folks out there is if you're somebody that struggles with risk and maybe you're not a big risk taker, or maybe you are a big risk taker, is to be able to juxtapose your level of risk taking, whether it's high or low, with somebody else around you who is a trusted advisor, a friend, a partner, and figure out where they are at on risk, right? So if you partner with somebody that's high risk and you're high risk, it might be time to pull in a third person that might be a little bit lower risk, so you can have better dialogue in going through the process of decision making. For all of our entrepreneurs out there, for all of our business leaders, this is something that's really important, right? If you're a high risk entrepreneur, it's probably a good idea to get an advisor on the team that maybe is a little lower risk, and then you can try to balance each other out and come to conclusions that are going to help you ideally make steady growth.
Yeah, and I think it's great for self-awareness, but it's also really great to understand the other people around you.
I think that the other thing that comes up for risk in these conversations is what's the difference between risk and fear? So, Jen, for you, do you see risk and fear as being ultimately the same thing, or do you see them as being different?
I think risk is ultimately that exposure of something happening to you. It's like what the definition I said at the beginning. So you're fearful of what? And I think that's the piece of it. Risk could mean different things for different people, your level of risk tolerance, as we just talked about. But there's an underlying fear of something and to uncover what that fear is for you personally is where you assess that risk tolerance.
You know, when we talk about fear, there's all these, great stories of things that people are afraid of and what are you afraid of? And so I was thinking about risk and I was thinking about fear and I couldn't help. Maybe I'm longing for summer, but I went back to my childhood days. And for those of you that grew up in the Western Mass area, what is now Six Flags was originally Riverside. I can remember actually getting on my very first roller coaster ride, the Thunderbolt, which is one of the biggest wood coasters in the country. Great experience, but I get on and I'm the last rider to get on. I'm 8 years of age and they go to close the gate, the bar that comes down, and it doesn't close and the ride takes off. And I spend the entire ride holding on to the bar for dear life. Everybody around me thought it was really funny. I didn't find it to be that funny. And what developed was, for a long time, a fear of roller coasters. What it made me realize was that in order to assess risk, our experiences have such a big role in that, right? So if you have a negative experience or you fail or something is scary to you, you're probably less likely to go and engage that behavior again. And so I want everybody that's listening to kind of think about this for a second. Like, what things are you risk averse to and what experiences led to that risk aversion that you might be able to go back and unpack and figure out, is it a logical aversion or is there something emotional attached to it?
Yeah, I'm going to play off this roller coaster theme and say entrepreneurs, this is their life, right? They're on a roller coaster of emotion every day and going through this journey of starting and growing something. And the thing that I've seen a lot is entrepreneurs have this, this uncertainty about the outcome of what they're creating. So they're not sure if what they're going to put into the world is something that anybody wants. They're afraid that they may not be able to execute on the vision. So maybe they're afraid of what their team is going to think, or if they're taking money from an investor, they're now worried about not being able to recoup that money for somebody else. So there's a lot of fear of risk associated with that. But I think that the entrepreneurs that have had the experience that maybe they've tried something and it actually did go okay, so they've had the experience and it was fine, they survived, it almost helps the next time that they have to take that next step forward.
So you're saying that I should be okay with roller coasters?
I think you made it out alive. So the chances of that happening again are really low.
They're really low. And I got to tell you, I'm gonna hit a follow-up to this roller coaster story. And it's interesting because I did come out alive and I am okay. I survived. I didn't ride roller coasters for a really long time due to a fear because it wasn't worth the risk. I actually ended up taking my daughter to Sesame Place when she was a younger child, and I remember walking in, her eyes lit up looking at the really large roller coaster, and I could tell that she had a particular fear. She was not going to get on a roller coaster. Well, here's what changed. I said, okay, Dad, it's time to jump on that roller coaster and show the next generation that maybe these roller coasters are actually safe and they're a lot of fun. So I hopped on and went for the ride, and I came down to try to demonstrate, which I actually think there is a parable there for our entrepreneurs. Surround yourself with people who have taken risks and who have failed and have lived to fight another day, but watch how they've continued to grow and how they've continued to climb, because I think that there can be something learned from all those survival stories.
Yeah, and I also think when we talk about fear and now you throw failure into the mix, there's a piece of that where you have the experience. You don't necessarily have to fail to feel that, but you also can fail and come out and feel great about the experience and be able to move on and move forward. And it's almost like there is no success if there is no failure. There's no success in the absence of fear. Like, there's so many great quotes, again, throwing the inspiration in there, but there's a lot you can take from actually going out and trying something and realizing I came off that roller coaster alive and I'm stronger for it. I'm better for it.
Yeah. And the last thing that I want to add to this conversation on risk is the importance of the people around you. And I think I've mentioned this in a sense in my stories. When we were doing a little bit of research, we came across this interesting trend. And essentially what it suggests is that if two founders come together, it actually increases the likelihood that that startup will be successful at a rate of about 30%. And I think what that tells us is that human nature is to have a certain degree of fear, right? We have been programmed to assess risk and to make good decisions. But I think in power, right, we have groups, but in groups we have power. And I think that there's a real opportunity for us to think about how we're building our teams. And so making sure that you've got balance of risk assessment and risk tolerance in your startup, in your group, in your organization can make a really big difference.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you hear stories from entrepreneurs and they're telling their founder's story and they share that journey, they'll often say, I had these moments where I just wanted to stop. I wanted to give up. It became really tough. Maybe they put themselves out there. They felt vulnerable. Their product was just about to launch that next day. And they said, why did I do this? And a lot of that is that risk, that fear. But having other people on your team that are maybe able to balance you, maybe they're excited for that product launch. Maybe they're looking forward to the opportunity to get their thing out into the world. So kind of having those feelings side by side I think makes you as an individual, that one that maybe is fearful, like feel a little bit better and can move forward.
Yeah, there is nice to kind of make sure that you can almost rationalize your thoughts. We'll leave with one last quote, and that is that the best way to learn more about entrepreneurship is to start a company. So we want to know, what do you all think? What is your relationship with fear, with risk? Have you overcome risk and your adversity to it? Have you been able to partner with some folks that have higher or lower levels of risk to help you, your business and organization move forward? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Send us on a message.
In this episode, Rory will be interviewing Emmet Moore, the founder of Jefferson Fry Company. Emmet has been in the restaurant industry for over 25 years. In that time, he perfected the art of French fries, which all started while working at his parents' fish and chip shop in Ireland. After moving to the States, Emmet found the choice of loaded chips to be sorely lacking. Thus, he created Jefferson Fry Company, dirty fries, burgers, and shakes. Let's have a listen.
All right, thanks for coming on the show, Emmet. It's great to have you here. You and I have had hundreds of conversations over the years. Thankfully, none of them have been recorded, but this one is. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Rory, and congratulations on the show.
I appreciate that. So everybody around the office heard that the owner of Jefferson Fry was coming in this Friday, and immediately I watched their faces fill with delight. Like they were literally salivating in front of us thinking, oh, fresh cut fries, burgers. So for any of our listeners that haven't had the pleasure of experiencing Jefferson Fry, you want to tell us in your own words a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Jefferson Fry Company brings value to our guests. That's our number one mission. And we want to do it. It is fast food, but we have a hyper focus on quality. So, for example, we use Bell & Evans for our chicken. So, you know, I can tell you now there's no fast casual restaurants out there doing that. You know, we use Pat LaFrida for our meats, for our steak and our hot dogs and beef and so on. So we really want to bring quality to our guests, and we, like I said, with a hyper focus on using and aligning ourselves with the best products and the best partners.
What are some of the staples that we might find on the menu? If you're walking in Jefferson Fry for the first time, what are some of the staples?
Oh yeah, so dirty fries is our thing. So we've got 16 types of dirty fries. Every Friday we give free fries away to everybody who comes in. Flavors from around the world, you know. So that's our niche.
There's so many great choices out there. If you haven't been to Jefferson Fry, usually what you do is you go in and you look at all the dirty fry choices, and then you end up falling in love with a favorite. Mine is the fusion fry. Do you have a favorite fry?
Dude, that's it. The fusion fry, man.
The fusion fry
is
really good.
Yep.
I also know that you guys are an official sponsor for UConn Athletics this year, and you're getting a lot of sales with your Husky Hot Sandwich. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, we were very happy to be able to announce that partnership with the UConn Athletics. So we're the official hot chicken sandwich of the UConn athletes as well. And it's been a great partnership so far. Yeah,
it's a tremendous sandwich, and just my mouth is watering right now thinking about it. Let's dive in and let's talk about Emmet a little bit here for a second. I think founder stories can have such a huge influence on how a business unfolds, and in many ways, right, they kind of dictate the early stages of the business. So can you tell us a little bit of story about where the origins of Jefferson Fry Company came from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Ireland, obviously, and my parents had a fish and chip shop, so I was cutting chips from a very young age. And then when I moved over to the States, married my wife. She's from Connecticut originally. Moved over to the States in 2012, and I couldn't get any garlic and cheese chips or the chicken curry chips. You couldn't get that over here. And I'm like, wait a second, this has to change. So I would say probably selfishly, I think I came up with the idea of Jefferson Fry Company just so I can satisfy my own cravings and share it with everyone else too as well.
How much did you learn in your childhood that you're still applying today from that experience with your parents?
I would say everything, really. I mean, it's keeping stuff simple and like I said, just focus on, having fun while you work too as well, and interacting with our guests and having a good time is what it's all about.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You've had a tremendous amount of success thus far, right? You've had a shop open in Cromwell, Canton, Stores, Vernon, and even here in Hartford, the Parkville Market. A lot of success. What can you attribute to the success that has taken place? And I know that you're not somebody to over-celebrate, so I know you have plans for the future, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But what do you think the common denominator has been for the relative success?
I would think I would probably say just being very guest centric, and not in a fake way, like in a genuine, like I want my guests to have a good time and to have a unique experience in a restaurant. We, like I said, the fries are our niche, but we also do some great burgers and great chicken sandwiches, and we have a kids menu too as well. we don't want to separate people like, oh, you want to do chicken tonight, or, you know, let's go to the chicken restaurant. You want to do beef tonight, let's go to the beef burger restaurant. We're bringing everyone together under one roof too as well, and we're really trying to, you know, really connect with our guests on a very human level. So you'll often see me, if you're in my restaurants during lunch or dinner, I'll usually be sitting down at a table with our guests talking.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think it has probably been missing from that fast casual type dining experience where you're just not getting something that's authentic or genuine, that's a part of the community. You do a tremendous amount of support for the communities that you're part of, right? Whether it's fundraising or just advocating. What's the idea there? Where does that come from? Is that just a part of your nature?
Yeah, I mean, it's always great to give back and to help out. And obviously when people reach out and are looking for a helping hand, like if we can do it, we will do it. I mean, it's like I said, it has to be, it's a very positive, you know, thing. So if helping out the community is a positive thing, and everybody wins.
Yeah, it's just really impressive. New businesses sometimes find it hard enough to get themselves going. And from almost day one, as soon as you opened your doors, you were quick to help others. And so I think that probably stands a testament to the values of providing quality to the community that you're a part of. However, the other side of this is risk. So the theme for this episode was risk. And so one of the questions that you and I have often talked about, and that I'd love for you to share a bit of the story to our listeners, is do you feel like you've taken on a lot of risk, or what's your relationship with risk been like as you've gone through this venture?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to dissect it too much, but it all depends on what you think by risk, right? Sure. Like, I think I see base jumpers jumping off buildings. I think, whoa, that's risky, right? Financial risk, yes. I mean, at one point I was in the bottom 10% in terms of credit scores in the US. You know, like you when you're starting a small business, you really have to give it absolutely everything. And I look back and you know, over the last 5-6 years and there's been quite a lot of sacrifices for sure. You know, so it's financial risk, yes, but the reward of being able to create a culture and a work environment where everybody has fun and where everyone is kind of focused on the mission, I think is that's where it's all. That's the compensation. That's the reward.
The payoff for you is watching this come together.
Even bringing a tray of food down to our guests in the restaurant is we're usually fighting over who gets to bring the tray to the table, because you know, when people say, "Oh, look at all this beautiful food," it's that's the reward. That's
fantastic.
Yeah.
So we're sitting here, we're smiling. It's finally sunny in Hartford. We're recording this the day before the 52nd annual Hartford St. Patrick's Day Parade. We're going to go march tomorrow as part of the Hartford Gaelic Athletic Association. We'll march as members of the Irish American community. And I was thinking about it driving in this morning, driving down the streets of Hartford. You know, tomorrow you'll get a chance to step out as part of this community, as an Irishman getting a chance to participate in this community, but also as an American, as a business owner in some regards. You're raising your family here, you're building a business here. Have you taken a moment to kind of reflect on that when these moments come along and there's an opportunity to just sit back and say, wow, this is pretty good? Have you had thoughts about that, or like, what does it all mean to you?
I guess I'm pretty tunnel vision in a lot of circumstances. I don't like to dwell on any particular situation one way or another. I live, you know, each day as it comes, and yeah, I just try to have a good time every day. I mean, that's really it. I actually told you one time, you know, everyone should do what they want to do. You know what I mean? Because that's important.
Very good. Very good. Along the way, you know, that was a lesson that was probably instilled from a very young age, but you've probably learned a few things, I would imagine, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. What's something that you've learned that you've maybe advocated that you wish you had learned sooner, or that you would pass along as a piece of advice? Anybody that's listening that's thinking to themselves, geez, I'm really, you know, kind of inspired by the courage, the risks that Emmet takes on. I wish I had that. As they were setting out, a piece of advice, something that you've learned along the way yourself?
Never lose faith in yourself. You know, always keep your eyes on the goal. And as negatives come across you, you just dodge and weave, and you kind of try and find the right way. When they close the door, you climb in the window. That's sort of you know.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about the future. I know that being tunnel vision means you're focused on the here and now, but obviously the business has continued to grow, so somebody's looking at the future. Tell us a little bit about any plans you have for the future of Jefferson Fry Company and where it goes from here.
Yeah, so you'll know, back in Ireland, obviously there's a fish and chip shop in every town, every village. You can't go anywhere. So you know, my mission from the very start was to share the flavors. that we brought from overseas over here and wrapped up in the concept of Jefferson Fry and share it with everybody across the nation. So we're actually beginning franchising our restaurant model now as well. So I think that the future is bright. I mean, and we're taking it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm super happy for you, and for our listeners that wouldn't know, Emmet and I have been teammates for many years, playing Gaelic football together, and pleasure always to take the field in life and in game. For you, Emmet, like, what's it been like to build your team in this process, and probably as the captain of this team, what's that process been like, and who's around you and been a part of that journey?
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate to have some great people, and I'll tell you a real quick story. Back when the COVID shutdowns were happening back in March 2020, I turned around and said to my guys, I had a team of 8 people with me in Cromwell, and we worked together every day. We only had one restaurant at the time, and I turned around to everyone and I said, listen, guys, we all know what's happening, we all know what's there, and there was benefits to not working, and I said, listen, whatever you guys want to do, I'll be here, my doors will be open, I'll be working, and all 8 of them said, you know what, we're all in. And that to me was probably, when everything was kind of, all the negative stuff was happening, that to me was that gave me a lot of drive and a lot of determination to keep going. And ever since then, I mean, we've grown quite dramatically. So. Yeah,
people really are at the center of the process, and there's so many stories that are still kind of emerging from that era, the COVID era, and it really kind of pushed people to really focus on their values. And so you're fortunate to be surrounded by people that share those values. Okay, as we look to wrap things up, as we do in our interview segments, we have 3 rapid fire questions. And so I'm going to give you 3 questions, and just whatever answers come to mind, that's good enough for you. So this is one of my contributions, one that I was quite excited to ask our guests. If you could change one law or one rule, what would it be?
Minimum wage.
Okay, and what would you change?
So when I first moved to the States, there was ranges, right? So when I first started working in a restaurant, it was $7.50 to $10 was what crew members and cooks could achieve, and then shift managers were 10 to 13, and then assistant managers were so there was great ranges there. And now it's just everything's being kind of consolidated into one. So I think that it by constantly increasing minimum wages, you're actually reducing the earning power of the people who have who want to make it in the restaurant business or any small business.
Yep, interesting. Yep, thanks for that answer. Yep. Second question, what's something you're not good at?
Sarcasm.
And number 3, how do you want to be remembered? What is maybe a piece of the legacy that stands out that you'd like to maybe leave behind or be remembered as?
When people remember me, if they remember me smiling, I'm happy with that.
Very good. Emmet, thanks so much for coming on the show and taking some time out of your busy day to be a part of it. If you haven't checked out Jefferson Fry Company yet, go ahead, punch it into your search engines, find the one closest to you, and make sure to make a stop there. You won't miss out.
Great conversation, Rory, and a special thanks to Emmet for coming into the studio and being a part of this episode. Now, Alex, let's kick it over to you for good idea, bad idea.
Good idea?
Bad idea.
All right, Alex, what do you have this episode for good idea, bad idea?
In the world of business, there's good ideas and, of course, bad ideas. On this show, Rory and Jen discuss their views on a topic of my choosing. Next month is April, and with that comes April Fool's Day. So do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea for companies to have a little bit of fun by playing April Fools with the content they share on social media or fake product launches? What do you think?
I like it, Alex. I think it can be a good idea. I think it can be a bad idea. Overall, I think it can be a really risky idea. I think for the sake of conversation, I think I'm going to say bad idea, and here's why. For me, I see it as a large investment of time and resources being put towards products or services that the organization or company doesn't actually offer. The concerning part, though, is that the risk may not necessarily justify the reward. So if it's funny, it's good, it goes viral and catches on, home run. But if it doesn't, are you left just saying, I just invested a lot of my team's time and energy into this thing, and it really didn't get the outcome that we wanted? So I'm going to say it's a bad idea.
So I know this is good idea, bad idea, but have you ever heard of crazy ideas?
No, but I didn't. Okay, sure.
Here we go.
Here we go.
So this is a really great, in my opinion, team building activity for entrepreneurs to dive into with their teams. So basically the premise is you allow your team to come up with wild ideas. Anything they want to come up with, whether it be about the product, the marketing approach, the service that you're providing to your customers, anything. and just allow them to rip. And I think what happens in those scenarios is you can come up with really, really good nuggets. With something that's absolutely wild, can you pull some of that back and find the gold in that? So that's my suggestion is, if you want to pull this, let's come up with a really cool thing for April Fools and do that as the tee up for your team, you might actually get some nuggets of wisdom in there that you can actually implement with your product.
Okay, so Jen's saying it's a crazy good idea.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea. From me, what do you think? You think it's a good idea? You think it's a bad idea? Will you be playing any April Fool's tricks on your customers, your clients, in your organization? If you do, send them in. Let them know. Maybe we'll feature them on our episode next month. That's our show, friends. Thanks for tuning in. Please be sure to share your correspondence with us. Drop us a line. Let us know if you've got an idea for a future episode, topic, or guest.
And don't forget, we produce our show right here in the Collaboratory studio at CCEI in the heart of downtown Hartford.
Coming up over the course of the coming months, we have the CCEI Get Seated Demo Day. That'll be April 16th from 5 to 7:30. And the annual Connecticut Beer Festival is at the Convention Center in Hartford on April 20th.
I will be there.
Until next time, folks, we're wishing you good luck in all your endeavors.